You're watching Beyond Markets. Welcome. I'm Esther. Awoniyi, many thanks for joining us. On the show today, we'll continue with our series of Nigeria's 2019 election conversations. As always, you can join the conversation with the hashtag Beyond Markets, and you can follow my Twitter handle too at Esther O. Awoniyi. Now, the youngest presidential candidate in Nigeria's forthcoming general elections and candidate of the Advanced Allied Party, Chike Ukaegbu, says the objective of his economic strategy is to improve the lives of the ordinary Nigerian and diversify the country's revenue streams. Well, he joined me to discuss his strategy to transform Nigeria's economy.
There were several factors, that came into play. One, I say, for every Nigerian who is qualified, who has what it takes, it is your duty and responsibility as a citizen to step up to the plate. And I did that for several reasons. One, we currently live in a nation of 58 that has been plagued with what I call visionless leadership, right? And why that is detrimental is the fact that average age in Nigeria is 18.2. Yet we have, in the last 20 years, we've only had one president who's under 70. Now, as we walk into fourth industrial revolution, you start to understand that for people who are making decisions, for us, I'm 35, a millennial, who are making decisions today that I and my children and my friends and my relatives, would have to pay for tomorrow, it is pertinent that those decisions are right. Otherwise, I say we walk into a dystopian future where you have an uneducated population, an unhealthy population, an unskilled population. And what happens is you're vulnerable to not just discriminations, but injustices from the rest of the world. Nigeria is the largest black nation. I believe that the mantle of leadership in Africa and in the world falls on her, and the fact that we have not gotten it right means there's something wrong with that.
Okay, so why do you think you're the right candidate?
So I'll tell you why. I understand. So part of the reasons why I felt like it was important to jump in, besides of course the fact that there are pensioners who have not been paid. My parents have not been paid pensions for over 22 months. I walk into hospitals and you see people dying every day. I tell people the most dangerous illness in Nigeria today is brief illness, right? That's what we see on every obituary because we don't have the healthcare to understand our problems, and therefore we can't find the solutions to that. So I spent the last 13 years plus focused on human capital development, focused on what I call disconnected and at-risk youth and empowering them through education, technology, and entrepreneurship. Unfortunately, Nigeria has the largest population of disconnected youths worldwide. And that's because we have leaders who do not really care about our lives, right? When I say there's that lack of compassion or vision or ideology, period, you start to see that part of the problem is, most of the people who have led us learned leadership from a perspective that was flawed, the colonial masters, right? Where everything was about the colonial master and not about, the subjects, as you would call it. And that's the perspective that our leaders have borrowed in leading our nation, and that's why we're in trouble. So when you say, why you? The three things that I believe are extremely crucial to human capital development: education, technology, and entrepreneurship are the three things that I've pretty much have spent my entire adult life working on. And they're crucial because education, like I'll always say, teaches us to understand our problems, but also to find solutions to them. Technology helps us to amplify these solutions as well as scale them out. And entrepreneurship teaches us to monetize them. Entrepreneurship builds the wealth of a nation.
So you're the presidential candidate of the Advanced Allied Party, the AAP. Tell us about the ideology of this party, what it stands for, and manifesto. What is it that you're putting on the table?
Sure. So before I chose a party, we had about 15 or so political parties approach us. I decided to go with the Advanced Allied Party because, one, the ideologies matched mine, and I'll explain that.
Okay.
But more importantly, they had the structure we felt was necessary, or the structure to do what we needed to do on a campaign level, right?
Okay.
And so there were six groups that came together to form the Advanced Allied Party. You had the National Youth Council of Nigeria, National Students Association, the National Women's Societies, National Council of Women's Societies, the National Disabilities Group, a couple of trade unions and a couple of civil service unions as well, right? So these 6 structures came together. And I mean, if you look at the nation, the bedrock of the nation, I say this, one of Nigeria's most untapped, unleashed assets is a woman, right? So partnering with the National Council of Women's Societies was a powerful move. That was important to me. Working with the National Youth Council is extremely important to me because, like I say, our average age in Nigeria is 18.2. If you look at the National Students Association as well, you start to understand some of the problems we have in this nation. When you have people graduate and come out, not just be unemployed and underemployed, but also lack the skill sets to compete on a global level, right? So this was important for me in building out structures in 36 states. That's 1. 2, in understanding that the people that I think are most crucial, and not saying that, you know, our parents and older generations are not, but only 3% of our population is over 65, right? The people that would drive the nation into the economy, into where we need it to be in the future, were here. And that's where I needed to be. Okay,
so campaign season has officially flagged off for the presidential elections. What has been the feedback in terms of what people have said to you when they walk up to you, when you walk up to them and tell them, I'm running for president? Be it people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, what has been the response when you walk up to people and say, I'm running for president? What do they tell you?
So there have been three categories of responses, right? Oh. You get those who are really excited, like, yes, we need a young person, our nation is young, this is what we need, this is what we're looking for, let's get it. There are those in the middle who are skeptical. They're like, we believe in your ideologies. We believe in everything you're saying and everything you stand for. But politics in Nigeria is too dirty. It requires a lot of money. That we see how we don't see a pathway to victory unless you, of course, explain it to us, right? Some would even tell you, and regardless of that, we're going to stand with you because we believe that our votes will count more if we stand on the side of history by casting it with you than with the current people who are running right now. And then you have the third group who've been skeptical. They're like, well, you're young, you know, wait your turn, or there is absolutely no way you're going to get there now, maybe 2023, or, you know, it's just, you get that, you know, bucket. And for each group, we have a message for them. Some have been more effective than others. And, you know, as we talk to people, we're fine-tuning our message to make sure that we reach as many people as possible.
We've seen more young people come forward, you know, into the political scene after we saw that they're not too young to run act, which has enabled all of this to happen. But for those who are in your age category, I mean, those in their 30s, 40s who are young, what have they said to you? And when you came out to run, are you counting on that group for more support? Mm-hmm. We know that Nigeria has, I mean, we're a nation of young people between 18 and 30s. We're a nation of young people. So are you counting on that in terms of votes and just helping you to get that momentum that you need?
Of course.
And has that been the case?
Yes, actually. In fact, I always talk about this young chap, 23-year-old boy in Benin. And someone had sent me a message on Instagram saying, hey, you know, check this profile out. And we go on the profile, and it's this young boy who was actually offering people money to vote for me. And when we reached out to him, we realized that he had been doing a whole lot. He had printed hats, T-shirts, medical glasses. He had done 2 huge banners. And according to him, as at the time when we reached out to him, he and his friends had already gone into 15 villages in Edo State to talk about me and my candidacy. They did not reach out to the campaign at all. You know, and we've seen this, we've seen things like this. I talk about him because his was the most outstanding. Okay. He eventually raised money to get a car to facilitate, you know, campaigning. We've seen this in the North. We have very, very solid support amongst young people in the North, and across the nation. So we're tapping into something in the underground that I think will cause an upset, will upset the nation when it comes to bear. Yeah, so people are like, well, you know, we don't see the rallies. I'm like, well, that's because we also understood that there was absolutely no way for us to win if we were to do politics the old political way.
Okay, so how are you doing? Are you using social media? I mean, how are you garnering all that support and, yes.
Okay, so one, I can't unveil my strategies because that's what it's keeping it novel, but I'll tell you this, what we're doing is completely circumventing everything that we know as politics in Nigeria. And
what, traditional campaign?
Traditional, process. Yes. Okay. And it's working. It's working for us. The results have been outstanding. We're excited by it. So when people say, well, you know, drop out and go join this guy, because we just laugh, because we see something that other people are not seeing. We feel a heartbeat in the underground that a lot of people cannot feel right now. But we're sure we'll rise to the top in due time.
Okay, let's get right down to the nitty-gritty now. Now, the presidential candidates that we've talked about, we've spoken to Randa. I mean, they've told us about, they share their thoughts and their plans for the economy. They've shared their plans on security if they become president. We've talked on some of the burning national issues, such as especially restructuring, which many Nigerians are expecting the next president, either the incumbent or a new one, would address head on, you know, when it gets right down to it. So let's start with the economy. For several years now, there was a time when we had, you know, GDP growth as high as 8-9%, but that hasn't been the case. We just come out of a recession, and we're still struggling to get even that 2-3%. When you think about the Nigerian economy, what do you tell yourself is wrong, and what you plan to do about it?
So one, you cannot have a robust economy when almost half your population live in extreme poverty, right? 87 million, right? You cannot have a robust economy when you're an import-dependent nation. You cannot have a robust economy when your sole dependence of revenue is almost in one sector. As the adage goes, you do not put all your eggs in one basket, because if it crashes and burns, you're done for.
That was Chike Ukaegbu, presidential candidate of the Advanced Allied Party. We'll continue with the rest of the discussion after the break. Welcome back to Beyond Markets. We're continuing our series of Nigeria's 2019 election conversations. The presidential candidate of the Advanced Allied Party, Chike Ukaegbu, joined me to discuss his strategy to transform Nigeria's economy. Let's pick up from where we left off, talking about your strategy for the economy. One of them was the pillars, feed the people. Right. You know, break it down for us.
Okay, cool. So before I dive into that, so I put out a budget. I said at a minimum, Nigeria's budget should be 200 billion, right? 30 billion. Yes. No, dollars.
Dollars. Okay.
$200 billion. $30 billion for feeding the people. $100 billion to go towards infrastructure. 20 to invest in our ideas, and 50 to invest in our future. And people say, well, 30 billion just to feed the people, what does that mean? And I'll break it down. So we live in a nation where we spend, the money we make from oil, which is our main resource, is larger than, you know, is less than what we spend on recurrent expenditure. So the first thing I want to do is cut our recurrent expenditure by half, right? We have too many people who
Wouldn't that be difficult, because we have a large wage bill, and I mean, many people, I mean, it's often been said that we have a very large public service. You're going to have to fire people for that.
Yes.
And the labor unions are just right at the door waiting for you.
But
so I'm just wondering,
it depends.
how do you try to pull that up?
Exactly. It depends on how you do it, right? So if I tell you today, hey, what are you getting paid? This is how you have 5 years towards your retirement. I'm going to offer you an early retirement. But in addition to that, in addition to your pension and gratuity, I want to give you a chunk of money to help you start a business.
Where's that money going to come from?
I'll explain all that, right? Now, if you offer that to encourage people, 50% of our, public service, right? push them into the private sector. Part of the problem we have today is the fact that, you know, we need a private sector that is at least 10 to 15 times what we have now, right? Because of the way our population is growing. So if you offer that to people, right, take that oil money that we spend on what I don't know what, offer to people, even if it means borrowing. There are several things we need to do. You know, we have the lowest tax rates in the world and the lowest number of people who pay taxes. There are loopholes we need to plug to make sure that, you know, revenue comes into the nation from our people. There's so many other sectors where, when I talk about becoming an export nation, if you export products, right? It strengthens our currency, it strengthens our economy, and these are ways to get money in. Now, encouraging entrepreneurship becomes one way that we can do that. And yes, sometimes we have to spend. Businesses take loans to expand because they know that they can make that money back. But that's what we need to do. We move some of these people into the private sector, give them what they need, equip them with what they need to survive in there, and have them, you know, drive the sector, drive the economy.
Okay. You know, we need to move this along. Let's talk corruption. Corruption is one of the issues that's been, of course, a national discourse and also a hot topic on this campaign trail. How the current administration has dealt with corruption and how those who are hoping to become president are going to deal with corruption. What is your take on corruption and what do you have in mind?
So I put out a video on corruption and how to tackle corruption. I think the problem we have today is that we try to fight corruption without having the infrastructure to support it. You don't go about jailing people without providing making sure that you have the law enforcement and the judiciary to support that. So for me, I am not interested in going after people whom we call looters, right? I'm more interested in developing the lives of the everyday Nigerian. Because I say sometimes what we call corruption is survival modes. The policeman that stands on the street to take money is because he has mouths at home to feed. If our nation were providing for him, if you give him that opportunity to make sure that all he's focused on is on his job, then we'll be able to curb some of those problems. So take care of the people first. This is my solution to corruption. Take care of the people first. Make them feel like their nation believes in them, provides and protects them. That's one. Two, put into place technologies that can, you know, plug some of the loopholes that encourage corruption. We do a lot of paper pushing. Some of those things, blockchain technologies can take care of that. It increases accountability and transparency and streamlines a lot of processes that will minimize, you know, the opportunities of people to be corrupt or to defraud the system, and then make sure that your, you know, law enforcement agency as well as your judiciary works to hold people who now try to defraud the system accountable for it.
Let's talk security.
Sure.
That's also a burning topic, and this current administration has been criticized from all sides, saying that they haven't been able to defeat the terrorist groups, especially Boko Haram, and adequately protect our borders. What is your take on that? And for you, how are you going to tackle security? Plan to tackle security.
Awesome. So once again, I think I have the most comprehensive solutions to tackling security in the nation, both video and text, right? And I use the Fulani herdsmen as the whatever to tackle that. I say this, some of the things we consider as insurgencies that increase insecurities in our nation is due to the fact that our government does not listen to its people. Once again, if we take it back to the colonial system of governance, they try to suppress when people try to complain or try to voice the opinions of the things that they lack. I said, for instance, we can avoid insurgencies in the Niger Delta if you sit down and listen to people who have the most polluted waters, the most polluted air, the most polluted environments. Their jobs are all gone. Yet they are the bedrock of wealth of the nation, right? When we look at oil. Now, if you look at, you know, those in the southeast, IPOB or Matsob or whatever it is they are, we're not listening to people. If you look at those in the middle belt, you know, I talk about the Fulani herdsmen and the cattle ranchers. I say it was easy for us to call this, Christian Muslim fight or Fulani, and no, without trying to understand what the problems are first. Desertification is what's happening. Understand that the nomads who are moving down and encroaching farmlands are moving down because the Sahara Desert has encroached upon their lands where they take care of their animals. They are both farmers, cash crop farmers, livestock farmers, right? So if we sit these people down at the table and say, listen, give us 2 years to reclaim this land, and it's been done before. Afforestation is nothing new. Israel has done it several times. There are several nations that have done that. Give us 2 years to fix this problem, right? So that you have the right to come back to your natural habitat. But within these 2 years, we're going to carve out a part of, Sambisa forests and turn them into walled ranches where you and your livestock can stay. And you take care of them. And beyond that, educate them, equip them with what they need to produce better products than that. If you make people feel like they're being heard and you listen to them and you have them on the table to contribute to solving those problems, then it's easier to harass, not to harass, to bring people to justice when they step outside the boundaries of the agreements you've made with them. So the first thing we need to do is, 1, understand the problems of the people who are causing these insurgencies. 2, dialogue. Bring them to the table and let's talk. 3, do not renege on whatever solutions you guys come up with. 4, make sure you have experts that can come up with better solutions to what they're even looking for and offer them better than they're asking for. And then 5, make sure you have a law enforcement agency or security apparatus that can guard the peace and the quiet of the people and can make sure that they curb insurgencies when they fall outside those boundaries.
Let's quickly talk about restructuring. I mean, the conversations about how, so many Nigerians feeling disenchanted, not feeling like they're part of one, the entity called Nigeria.
Right.
So the question of how Nigerians can be better unified obviously has been at the fore. So for you, what does restructuring mean? How do you define restructuring, and what is the plan for you?
Awesome. So once again, I think I have the most comprehensive structure of what a restructuring will look like under my administration. I put out a system. I say the problem we have is we've borrowed systems from other nations without putting into place who we are as a people and our culture and our traditions into that system. So it was easy for us to go to the US to borrow, federalism and capitalism without understanding that, you have different, Nigeria is a nation of 520 languages, 250 ethnic groups. So we're not, a single entity with very dynamic system, and you have to take that into place. So what our structure looks like is you have a head, you have the president, you have 3 arms of government, the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary. But for us, it was extremely important that we cut down on number of legislators we have. So we have only 1 house there. Now on the lower levels, we have regions. You have a regional head, and you have a house of chiefs and house of assembly. And then the governor is part of the house of assembly that is accountable to the entire house. Now, what that does is, I'll come back to something else. What that does is it makes the governor more of a supervisor of the state which he sits on, which he's responsible for. And he works with commissioners to do everything that has been agreed at the regional level. Now, those regional heads are now part of the National Council, amongst other people. I'll have to send you that structure to see. And the National Council in itself provides an oversight for the executive so that you don't have too much authoritative power to override every other thing. Now, the importance of having a House of Chiefs is to make sure that our cultures and our traditions are not forgotten by our people, that they are maintained, that they can investigate and research and start to, educate us on the cultures and, our history that we have forgotten because we've adopted everything from the Western world that has not worked for us. So for me, it's about developing a hybrid system that works for us, by us, for us, not trying to borrow from other people to force on ourselves when it does not work. Now, if you do that, the regional breaking down or restructuring now enables regions to invest in themselves, to compete against each other, to be the best that they can be. Now, if the stuff that comes out of a region, for me, we should do a 50, 30, 20. Yeah, 50 to the state, 30 to the region, and then 20 to the federal. Such that federal only serves as a support system, for the regions, while regions focus on developing themselves. And some people say, well, some others have more natural resources than others. There are many nations today that don't have natural resources, yet a top 10 economy. So it's investing in your human capital.
We're out of time now, but I'm going to ask you this question. Sure. I've asked all the other candidates that I've spoken to. Do you believe that you have a pretty good chance of winning? I know I have a great chance. Would you be surprised if you don't? No, I wouldn't be. I mean, when you go into a gamble, there are 2 possible options. Is making sure that for each one, there's an exit plan, or there's,
transition plan. Yeah.
That was Chike Ukaegbu, presidential candidate of the Advanced Allied Party. With that, it on Beyond Markets. Thank you so much for being a part of it. Remember, you can watch all previous episodes of Beyond Markets on our website. That's cnbcafrica.com, and you can also stay engaged with the hashtag Beyond Markets, and you can also follow me on Twitter at Esther Awoniyi. From myself and the rest of the team, enjoy the rest of your day.